Hi, hello and welcome to the Sports Exchange. My name is Carole Beckford. In our first episode, we had a look at venues and how important they are to sports. In this episode, we're going to be talking about a well-kept secret. It's called event planning. And event planners make sure your venues are ready before, during, and after. Very important skill, something that a lot of people don't take into consideration all the time. But here at the Sports Exchange, we're going to be talking and delving deeply into event planning. And with us, we have a young lady called Kimberly Smalling. She is an employee of Main Event, and she does wonders with events here in Jamaica. And of course, we're happy to lend her over to you in the Caribbean and anywhere you're watching from for a well-established fee. Kimberly, welcome to the Sports Exchange.
Thank you for having me, Carole.
All right, event planning. Tell me really, first of all, what kind of skills are required to plan major sporting events?
Well, for a major sporting event, really, it's just for you to understand the sport that you're actually going to be executing, the rules, what it takes for the athletes, as well as the experience that the patrons actually is going to have. So once you have an understanding of the event and what it entails, you'll be able to plan around. So basically, what it really takes is for you to do a walkthrough in the brain, just to see what the experience will be like for the patron from buying the ticket until the point of exit. And also taking into consideration how all these elements that you would like to put together to make the sporting event come together, take into consideration how it affects all parties, the athletes, the patrons, the sponsors, basically. So once you have that consideration, a little bit of logistics, planning.
A little bit of logistics?
Well, a good amount of logistics actually, but an understanding of logistics and what it takes and the timeline that it takes to actually get the things done, you should be okay.
All right, so let's talk. I'm going to do the indoor one later because, you know, Jamaica and the Caribbean, we're more known for things like track and field, football, horse racing. You know, the Boys and Girls Athletics Championships is a big event in Jamaica.
Yes, it is.
And you have worked on that event for some time. Tell me, first of all, what is the timeline to be contacted when you think that organizers should contact you, the event planner?
Well, for events of such nature, minimum 3 months, minimum. For some events, it actually takes 6 months into planning. But the Boys and Girls Championships, it's, to make reference to that, it happens yearly. So once you have gotten into the groove of things, you kind of know what is happening. So the limitation of 3 months would be good, but conversations happens before that. You have to think of what it will be looking like next year coming from the ending of the previous. So minimum 3 months, but 6 to 8 months, perfect.
All right, so the National Stadium at Kingston is where the Boys and Girls Champs have been held for a long, long time. What is your first point of reference? Walk me through, take us through the walkthrough for the stadium.
So for the stadium, logistics aspects of it, it takes a team of people coming together. So for the whole walkthrough, you have to take into consideration access to the venue, the first point of contact. So we have to take into consideration road traffic, how patrons, how you will direct traffic, how patrons will enter into the venue, the security aspects of things, safety, where you have to do the bag checks and everything on arrival. Coming into the venue, you have to think about the experience that the patrons will have in being banded, being checked, the experience that they will have meeting in with the sponsors and everything entering into the stadium. Once they're in, for the sporting aspects of things, you have to think of it from different angles, from the sponsors angle, from the athletes handle, from the patrons angle. If we're supposed to take it from a sponsorship perspective, coming in, you'd have to take into consideration how you can make the brand interact with the patrons from initial stage. So coming into the stadium for the Boys and Girls Championships, we normally have executions on the Statue Road coming in. Sponsors tend to take advantage of the different entry points into the stadium to interact with the patrons. As well as far as the sponsorship goes, you have to take into consideration the aim that you're doing at that point in time. and what you want to, how you want to engage with the patrons. So if it's like a sign up aspect of things, like you want more customers, more for your brand, and you're doing a sign up thing, we basically go through the space to see where's the best location for you to target your audience for that kind of setup. If you're looking to just do engagement, how we can make it exciting and fun and not take away from the sport itself.
Oh,
so you have to take into consideration all that aspects. So you don't take away from the sport, but at the same time get a lot of benefits from executing. From the patrons' perspective,
fan engagement is big nowadays. People
big.
coming to venues to have fun. They want to watch the sport. But when they take family members, for example, younger children or even more mature people, tell me some of the things about fan engagement.
Fan engagement. So basically, you have to take into consideration things that will complement the event, not distract from it, as you just said a while ago. So, for instance, if you're having the event that's coming to mind, coming out of the championships, for instance, racehorsing event, really and truly people tend to think of it from the betting perspective, but actually it's a family event, because people tend to bring the kids when they're like training the horses, or for them to get familiar with that and everything. So kids do come out to such an event. So for that aspect of it, you take into consideration probably having a kids zone, tailor your menu for the kids, as well as make it kids friendly, watch the music that you play, the type of DJ that you bring out, just multiple different things you consider to just make it around the family.
All right, a lot of major sporting events have broadcasting rights. And so while you're setting up for the fans in the stadium, you're also fixing the venue so that the people watching on television. All right, tell me about the things like signboards on the field and so on. How you work that out?
Okay, so first it goes from the level of sponsorship that each sponsor actually are allotted. So based on that, you will capitalize on that. But normally for TV aspect, depending on where camera is being shot from, you try to capitalize for the sponsors from that angle. So you all have digital boards, because currently we're going digital with most things. And really and truly you get most brand exposure from capitalizing on digital, because you're not limited to just a static thing. You can showcase different things on digital branding. So you have digital perimeter boards, which normally if you're in the stadium and you're looking at the field, it would run along the circumference of the football field, along the edge of the football field, as well as around the track. You also have static boards, which each sponsors, you can put that again along the track. When you think of the stadium, you have our cycle track. So when you go above the cycle track, there's a little space right there that allows you to do branding as well. The cycle track itself provides you with branding opportunity. When you go above the patrons, above the seats, you have billboards that you can utilize. The flags are there in the stadium for the Boys and Girls Championships. That's utilized as well for branding purposes. And then you have everything as far as in the air. You're not limited.
Tell me about that.
So you're not limited to just within the space, as long as it doesn't, you're not like going against any rules or affecting anything pertaining to the championships, or as well as the air force itself. But there are the big lights in the stadium, things like that. You can capitalize on branding that to uplift how the space look, as well as give your brand the exposure. There are blips, there are feather banners. At the
Do
stadium,
people still use buntings, that thing that you used to wrap around?
Yes, but nowadays it's more likely, so bunting used, but we try to use it discreetly, but where it's mainly used is around the athletes village, where the athletes prep before they come into the stadium. So therefore you get that branding going around there, so you know that these sponsors are a part of it. So bunting are normally used in that space. You tend to put them on areas where they don't normally blow and affect the thing, but bunting's still in the play.
Right, so like at the National Stadium complex, you have the warm-up stadium.
Yes.
So you're talking about tents and buntings
and bunting and all that aspect. So once sponsors can even capitalize as well on sponsoring a school. So basically around the athletes area where they prep before they go out, you have their tents. If you sponsor a school, you should be able to brand that space. You get to go in and provide, in the sense of depending on the product that you're offering. For instance, for the Boys and Girls Champs, Grace Foods, they tend to do a lot of things for the athletes to ensure that they're okay during the days that they're there and comfortable before they actually go.
Isotonics and hydration.
Hydrations and all of that, that's around there. So there's different ways, once depending on your product or your service, that you can actually reach out to your different target audience and have visibility in the space.
If you just joined us, you're listening to the Sports Exchange, and I'm here with Kimberly Smalling, major event planner, that tells you how you can maximize the use of your facility. Right? We're talking a little bit about outdoor, we're talking about track and field, we did that touch a little bit on horse racing, and we're going to take you inside in a little while.
Nice turn that was from Warner Brown. Runs into spin.
Harry, JPS that give 10 people more life. Download my JPS app now.
Get the app and you can win more life. A new year you are gonna need more life. JPS are gonna light up your life with 23,000 a month by your life. Get the app and you can win more life. Now love darkness, me love my life. Bills cover so the energy right for the 2023 future. Well, show them the app when you a walk past them. Chop where you use me now have no problem. Power in a house turn on the fan them. Report any outage or any problem. Whoa, 100 years never lie. We a give the chance to you win more life. JPS I make the future well bright. If you tell me say the app you don't but you alive. Win more life. Download the app and you can win.
Caribbean dreams, instant turmeric tea. What you put in is what you get out. What you put in is what you get out. Yeah. Build up your body, boost up your brain. Take on the world now. Say bye-bye pain. Caribbean dreams, instant turmeric tea. Be good to you. Caribbean dreams, instant turmeric tea. Distributed by Amalgamated Distributors Limited.
My name is Therese Kettle, Vice President Investment Banking at Burrito Investments Limited. Now, what do I do at Burrito Investments Limited? I'm the Vice President in charge of investment banking, so pretty much it starts off with me making sure that my team is right, providing my team with the support so that they can get their job done. In investment banking, what we're doing, we're always looking for opportunities to help our clients to grow. We try to make sure that we understand our client's business. We listen to the client, listen to what the client is saying and what the client is not saying. At Burrito, we want to revolutionize your business. Let's talk.
If you're just joining us, we're talking to Kimberly Smalling, a major event planner. She does sports. She does a lot of entertainment too, you know. So, but we didn't talk much about that because remember you're on the Sports Exchange. And so, if you have to get somebody like Kimberly, 3 months, 6 months, or even a year, engage them early because it's important. And you can maximize your opportunities when you get a good event planner, because they will tell you every space, every inch, every quarter that you can use up for the fans, for the athletes, and just anybody else, and even for the viewers at home. Kimmy, you're the event planner, so you have a big picture thing. But tell me some of the people you work with, like for a venue.
Okay, so the people that you work with, trust me, they are the most important aspect of your event. So basically, internally, we have our team. So you have people who we call our field services people. These persons are responsible for setting up the tents, the structural aspects of things, flooring that are needed. You have your technicians that we work with that deals with the setting up of the visual items like the digital boards, their audio system, lighting if needed for the nighttime of the event. Outside of that, you might have some issues on the ground. You might need some carpentry where you need to secure some things or build some form of structure. So we also work with carpenters. We work with the electricians and or technicians that work with the generator. They provide us with the power in the venue, wherever the power needs to go, especially in the stadium, considering the stadium is a big space. We use multiple generators to get that event up and going, as well as we work with electricians that are assigned to the different areas that assist us in pulling together the power needs of the venue. We also work with the suppliers in terms of external suppliers. We have the DJs. Sometimes we utilize a DJ for the championship to get the music going and the vibe setting, that aspect of things. We have food suppliers that come in to provide teams with meals and different aspects of things. We have entertainment. Like for instance, if you take into consideration the closing ceremony for the Boys and Girls Championships, we can work with over hundreds of performers as well as few. So we have dancers, we have drummers, we have steel bands, we have stilt walkers. So you deal with a whole entertainment aspect for performances. We have printing. Printing is very big. Signage. So we have our printing companies coming in to do the branding for the team. So you have to consider branding setup. So we have persons coming in to put in the billboards, the static boards, the signage, the feather banners. So you have to work with different personnel for that. We also have, when you think about the internet aspect of things, you have to have fiber runs to get, that's how we get the digital boards up and to get live streams over to the Stadium East where the athletes are, so they can actually see what's happening on the infield of the stadium and to be prepped to know when they're supposed to come around for their events. So it takes a lot of different suppliers coming together to get that going.
All right, so we couldn't have this conversation without talking a little bit about the Super Bowl halftime show where our Barbadian Jamaican Rihanna performed. But think about that. So you have a full football game, and then you break at halftime for entertainment. We don't have halftime shows during track and field, but we have opening and closing ceremonies.
We do actually for the boys and girls.
For the boys and girls champs.
Yes.
Tell me a little bit about the transition so you don't affect what's happening on the field. How do you make that transition seamless without affecting?
Okay, so for that aspect, it takes a lot of planning with the performers as well as the technical team and everyone who is involved. So we do, however, plan prior to the championship. So we understand the timeline that we're working with. Like for instance, there is call it a halftime show, like a 30-minute show that Grace has during the Boys and Girls Championships on Saturdays. So basically for that, we go into planning for that prior to the championship, so we understand what the brand is trying to execute and how well it fits into the timeline. Once we are allotted that timeline, we plan everything to the T. So we have rehearsals that takes into consideration all the elements that will be outplayed and how, so everybody gets a feel of what it will be like during that timeline. So you have to take into consideration the items that are being used, where will you put them in the stadium, because really and truly you have nowhere to hide them at some point in time.
Oh, yeah.
So where those elements will be placed, how you will bring them out, how it looks on TV, bringing them out, the team, how the team looks bringing those items out.
Is it important to have the simulation, the time of day that you're actually going to have that show?
Yes, it does. It affects in terms of lighting versus lights, as well as what is happening in the space at that point in time.
And of course in the event of rain, because
yes.
you're outside.
Well, you're outside. In terms of rain for the stadium and events, sometimes depending on how heavy the rain is, things will go on, and you'll try to manage that as best as possible. But for sure, the rehearsals is key. We do a full planning and technical running order as to what is happening, what happens here, where are people going, what comes up next, and you have different people assigned to the different areas to say, okay, cue dancers, cue performer, cue host, cue everybody for the technicals with the screens, ensure that the content is set and ready to go, because you're working with a strict timeline. So once the time is up, it's on to the next event. So you have to ensure that everything is planned to the T. Prior to, you do multiple run-throughs so persons get the feel of it and understand what is happening and their placement and how we come together to make it work.
Probably a little secret. I probably shouldn't be giving our viewers so much information. But in some locations, the artists actually rehearse as is. So if on the day they lose their voice, they can play the rehearsed music.
Well, for most of the events, we don't necessarily, you do have that aspect of it, but we tend to do everything live for most of the events that we execute there. So you try to manage the risk in case something happens. How do you go about what will be done in this timeline given, let's say this happens, there's a break in this, who goes and fills the gap for that aspect. So risk management is very key in that aspect of things.
All right, so we talk a little bit about outdoor events, horse racing, track and field, football. I'm going to take you inside just a little bit. You've done basketball. Same thing applies, but you have a smaller space. How do you...
So with a smaller space, you take into consideration the layout of the space. Branding will have to be, you look at the type of branding that you utilize in this space and the elements that you bring in, so it doesn't eat up the space, but you get just as much visibility as a sponsor, and flow of the event works very well. The branding and the planning and the elements that come together is basically the same.
Right?
You do have digital branding. You try to maximize on how you interact with the guests, whether it be from the entry, just the same. It's just that you don't have to take into consideration mainly the outdoor elements, which are the rain, the sun, those elements, wind. So like for instance, your pull-up banners will work better inside.
Because there's no wind.
There's no wind for that aspect. You don't have to consider whether or not you need a tent or anything like that. It's just how you make the space that you're now placed in, how you can transform it to make it beautiful for camera and for the patrons viewing and for the event itself.
In the Caribbean, we tend to use a lot of fabric.
Yes.
Because our flags are our national colors. How has that changed over the last decade or so with regards to the use of fabric? I see we're still doing it. Carnival, sports, and all of that. Give us an idea of what happens.
So now people tend to go more of, we're becoming very creative as to how we execute and how we look. So we still do use fabric because, trust me, it helps in many ways to hide things, to beautify things. But at the same time, people are leaning to like creating backdrops or building structures or coming up with unique ways as to how to make the event flow differently. So it's just the beautification of things. Things are coming out now that are more digital, that will help you, give you a different vibe, a different look. Like for instance, before, as well as florals are a thing that's going as well. Before, when you used to set up, you'd probably just see fabric, but people add elements to that. We have digital branding that gives uplifts what you're doing. Like for instance, there's no, like for instance, like you'll have this wall, you'll probably be able to add a digital spinning fan that gives your brand information and everything. So it's just creative ways, and different products are coming out that you can uplift to just doing fabric stretchings.
How does an event planner like yourself keep up to date and keep relevant?
Well, definitely you have to research the industry to see what's happening out there in the world and to get a better understanding of where it's going. Because although they consider us to be the Caribbean and we're small and everything, we do, when we execute with pride, and we always come out big and
for sure.
Therefore, I tend to research what is happening in the bigger world to get a better understanding, see how it can be applied in our Caribbean area, in Jamaica specifically, and basically try to always understand where brands are going as well, to get an understanding of what the market is like and marketing and the digital aspect. As I indicated, things are going digital now, so it's always just to continuously research to see where the industry is and to see how things can be applied to create a greater experience for the patrons as well as the client themselves, to make it a very successful event.
Yeah, man. Successful sport events go after experience for the fans, for the patrons, and for the athletes that are competing. We talk a little bit about fan engagement, but have to squeeze in social media.
Yes.
Social media and content. These things now provide a lot of content.
Exposure.
Listen, how do you use social media, people?
Every brand, every individual uses social media to some extent. I'm assuming probably you even have a social media team, Carole, going with you. But it is the way to go now, because it gets information, it gets exposure instantly. So it is the way that most people go. So social media persons are present at every event because it gives everybody that live experience if you're not there as to what is happening, and it gets the information out very quickly. So for most sporting events, it's there. It's just for you to create, you have to take into considerations the media zones when you're setting up as well, how they'll be able to capture without affecting the event itself and the athletes and what they're doing. So they're very important, and it's just to work with them as to how their flow of things will happen. Like for instance, for the boys and girls championships, there is the media zone where people are allowed to do the interviews.
Right,
you have to take into consideration prior to the access, how they'll get access for security measures for them to come down to the track side area. So that takes a lot of planning. So it's not just like, oh, I can show up and come down to video.
And there's a process of accreditation.
There's a whole process of accreditation and aspects of things.
Yeah.
So that's all part of the planning of the event as well, which happens way before the actual event.
All right, guys, so there you heard it. Kimberly, we can sit down and talk about this, a lot more elements, but event planning is important. So whether you're having a major sporting event, or in the case of the Caribbean, a major carnival, dance, you know, any kind of event, an event planner is important. So whether it's inside or outside, it is always important. Event planning to use up your space, use up your time, and to make sure that your event runs on time. This is the Sports Exchange. My name is Carole Beckford. Join us again. Thank you for tuning to the Sports Exchange. My name is Carole Beckford. Until next time.